Howdy everybody. It's been a little bit since I've done any videoing at all whatsoever, and I've got a lot done. I'm gonna have to show you. She's almost ready to rock and roll. Before I kind of get going into everything, I did not video any of this work. It's been kind of a crazy last couple weeks, so I've been just kind of doing work as I can. And I'm just going to kind of show you what I've gotten done. I'm going to try to pick up from the last video, which I think we were talking about doing the shocks, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I've relocated my shock brackets and I've got the shocks in. Haven't done anything with the bump stop yet, but the shocks are in, mounted, and they are squared up. And if you notice, I also have a full hydro. And I've got everything kind of tacked in place. I've got my arms done up. I've got my bracket made. And everything's pretty square. The axle is shimmed. These are 6-degree shims. I might move down to 3-degree shims. Originally, I had my ram up quite a bit higher and my clearance between the leaf spring was super tight, but I figured if I decide to go with 3-degree shims, I better have this thing set as level as I possibly can with the arms. This bracket is not finished by any means. I still have to do quite a bit of welding and a few finish brackets. So I'm gonna put a guard up in front and make sure everything clears before I finalize anything. These arms are just tacked in place. They are not finalized as well. I might pull these back apart and throw some holes to do some plug welds. And I've got my orbital mounted up in there and she is ready to rock and roll. I just have to change this little piece right here to fit those splines. I believe that's a 27 spline and I think that's like a 32 spline. All my lines I will be able to reuse. Everything is mounted back, so luckily don't have to get any new lines made. That saves me quite a bit of money on that. It's definitely muggy out right now, but yeah, I was definitely hoping that all my new lines were going to be able to get made. Next thing is the top half of my old bumper is sitting right here because I cut it off, and started making my new bumper because we are throwing the Warren upright off of the old 88 Toyota. We're gonna be throwing that up on here, and I've got some nice brackets that wrap around and are welded together. Got a little brace here. Reason being is the winch is getting set offset to the passenger side, and if you've never seen an upright Warren, that's why, because that blocks all the airflow. So I'm pushing it over as far as I possibly can to one side so I can still have as much airflow as possible. And I've still got to do a little bit of finish work on this. This is not finalized. It's welded in place and it's not going anywhere, but I still have some grinding to do, clean up a few rough edges, but she's welded on and ready to rock and roll. New tranny cooler, Mishimoto cooler. Took out the old one. This one's going to do much better. Moved this bracket, used to be mounted across right here, moved that down, tack welded it in place and drilled some holes so this cooler is nice and tight. Got to run my tranny lines, extend it over to that side, and then my return should be long enough to hopefully reach that fitting right there. But I've got to figure out how I'm going to go about remounting my fan. With that winch, it kind of tucks up all the way tight over to here. So I'm not going to be able to mount the fan center, most likely. It's going to have to be offset to one side, which, I mean, it'll still do something. So I'm going to have to play with that. Eventually, the radiator is going to get swapped out to a bigger and better radiator, but we will figure all that out when I go to do that. Another thing is, found out that the battery in this truck ended up leaving it connected, and it's no longer good. So this is the battery right here, and I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's starting to bubble right there, and it's got pretty bad corrosion, which I've had before, but this battery is just completely dead, no good at all. And I have to figure out with the new bumper, because we're going to be doing a cage and everything as well, hopefully before King of LB. I got to figure out where I'm going to remount all of my lights. I'm probably going to go through and clean these up and maybe try to reseal them. I think this is the only one that actually has any moisture in it. I think the other two are fine, but I'm going to see how I want to go about remounting these. And like I said, the bumper's not done. I may still add some kind of tight stinger right over the top of this. Not sure. I'm gonna have to mess with some tube that I have laying around and just see how I like it. I might try to run it nice and tight right over top of this, but like I said, I'm gonna do some cleanup on this, and when I clean it up, I'm probably gonna do a slight U shape. I'm gonna grind out a little bit just so it's not completely flat, just to spruce up the look a little bit. But let's be honest, this truck isn't getting many points for looks. Hardly gets points for usability. But maybe with this thing, she might gain a few extra points back. And this ram, I know it seems like it's gonna be kind of a just a straight up bash bar, but it still sits quite a bit higher than the bottom of the diff. So I'm gonna be adding some extra plating to save the bottom of the bolts and where the nuts are gonna be and everything, and then throw some plating in the front, so if it does become a bash bar, at least it'll hold up to it. The other thing that I have to do that I have not gotten to yet is I need to figure out my front drive line. So I've talked to a few people, and this front yoke needs to get changed over to a 1350, and I've got to find the right yoke so I can take this one off, cut it, machine it and pull it off, or if I'm going to cut it, however it's going to be done. But I need a 1350 put on the front long slip of this drive shaft, because this drive shaft is an extremely long slip, and that's not even all of it. There's probably still at least a few more inches, but this is a long slip shaft. Not that I need all of it, but I'm going to try to reuse this, because as of right now I'm keeping the NP231, and I'm going to reuse this half of the driveline for now, because the doubler kit is not going to be getting used. I'm actually going to be selling that. It's posted right now, and we're going to work on getting this 205 with a legitimate doubler into the Dakota at some point. It's not going to happen right now, just because of the cost of everything. I'm trying to hurry up and push for King of LB, but I need at least a few runs in to break in the front end as well. The front end is set up super tight, comp style, so it needs to be broke in definitely quite a few miles, and then the oil changed inside of the differential. I believe the only other thing I've done on the axle is I've put my seals in for the unit bearings. Not that you can really see it, it's way back in there, but I had to pull all my hubs and unit bearings back off, because I completely forgot that I needed to put seals in there. So I ended up pulling these all back apart. I had to tighten this hub up a little bit anyways, or this unit bearing. I had to tighten that up. It had a little bit of slop. So pulled that off, put my seal on the back side, and I was gonna do inner axle seals, but you can't put an inner axle seal on these Yukon Chromo shafts with the hardcore joints, because the shafts don't have a lip to them like the factory shafts do. So I almost found seals that would work, but it was kind of a pain to get everything to sit in there, and it was more time consuming and harder to get, and I was just more or less gonna destroy the seals just to try to press them on. And yeah, I tried, but I gave up on that and moved on. So as of right now, the things that I need to finish is bump stops, either moving these and making a new pad, or going to some cheaper bump cans, which is what I really want to do. Finish my full hydro and everything that goes along with that, welding this, running my lines, bleeding everything. Finish the bumper, finish the fan, the cooler, everything else. Hopefully be able to get into a cage here relatively soon. And one big thing, I still have to buy wheels and the lug adapters for the rear axle. I might change over to a full float kit sometime in the future, if this 9-inch will continue to hold up. If not, I will be going to a Sterling, and the 9-inch will get put into the Toyota back there, along with either that 44 or the other 44. So either way, everything will get reused. Don't like wasting money, and I know you can never really get your money back out of anything, so if I can put it to good use, I will, and I usually do. So looking on this side, you can see I didn't finish cleaning up. I got lazy, but shock tabs are rotated and set in there perfectly, and I have both sides set at the exact same ride height, and I believe this whole thing sits lower than it used to, because on my old ones I had a bump pad, and the bump pad sat about yay high, and I know I had more room than that, so I believe this front end is gonna sit at least an inch lower, which is kind of what I was hoping for. And it is also pushed about an inch farther forward, which that was not necessarily planned, but I'm not upset with it because I have a handy tool called a Sawzall and a plasma cutter, cutoff wheel, and we can make some of this stuff go bye-bye. We don't need any of this stuff. It can go away, especially when we go to do the cage. Don't really know how we're going to be tying everything in, but we're going to be doing a hybrid cage for sure. Probably going to be B pillar and C pillar on the inside with some X bracing. Try to make it where we can get the dog in and out and everything like that. And then I'm going to throw a few bars on the outside for some rub rails, a halo up top, and then from the bumper, if me and Jake can get good enough, I would like to have some kind of bar come out, up and over the fender and land down on the rock slider. Might have to extend a nice pad out right here for it to land nicely, but we're gonna see how good we can get. I think for the most part, that's pretty much everything I've done. It's been super time consuming, especially with the little amount of time that I've had these last couple weeks to try to get some of this stuff done, but it's definitely coming along a lot faster than I thought it would. I didn't think I was going to be this far ahead this early on. I thought I was going to be really time crunching it for King of LV, but I was able to order my parts, get them in, and start slapping some stuff together and at least placing things where they need to go. A lot of it's not finalized, but that's completely fine. The finalizing is the easiest part. Figuring out how everything's actually gonna work is by far the hardest part. about doing custom builds and stuff like that, especially for this truck, because there is no information that you can find about trying to do literally anything. So everything is 100% custom on this, and if things break, I'll just build it better. But I think she is starting to look pretty dang good. I like the bumper. Originally I was thinking about cutting it off here and redoing the whole thing, but this is definitely a nice base, a nice platform, and this bumper has really never been in the way before. And with the leaf springs, I love the leaf springs on this truck. You can just beat the crap out of it, and then now having the full hydro down there just makes it look super sleek. And no, it's not a PSE, but it is a I believe it's a 2-inch or 2.5 inch. I mean, it's a big boy 8-inch throw ram, so I think this should be plenty. And also this orbital is more like a, I don't want to say surplus, but it's definitely not your like trail gear or PSE. I mean, it's just a standard orbital, and I made sure it has the same flow. At least that's what the description of it states. The same flow that is needed for this size ram. So I think it's 125 milliliters or something like that. I don't know the technical terms. I just made sure everything looked right and everything matched up when I was looking on different websites. I got all of this stuff on eBay. This ram kit with the clevises, all the heims, and the arms. So this whole entire setup I got it on eBay. I think it was less than 500 bucks. It was like 400 and some change, 450, 480. And then the orbital with the steering piece, the stubby, and this bracket was also only another maybe $400. I want to say it was about 400 bucks. So I'm not saying this is the way to go, because I have no idea how any of this is actually going to work, but I'm going to test it out, and if it's even remotely worthwhile, I would say that this is definitely a good route to go, because this is easily half the cost of going with trail gear, let alone PSE. I mean, nothing against either of those brands, but if you're kind of going on a budget, I'm going to test this out, and if this all works pretty good, then I don't see why you shouldn't run any of this. So these are all rebuildable, so you can rebuild the ram, you can rebuild the orbital, and it's all serviceable parts. You know, that's the one big thing, is if you're gonna buy some cheaper stuff, make sure it's at least serviceable, because you can get some stuff that has no serviceable parts, and that's where you're gonna end up biting yourself in the butt. Because if you do start having issues, then you have to buy a whole completely new one, where you could just buy some seals or something like that, buy new clevises. So I'm gonna be testing all this out. Not saying these are the right parts, not saying they're the wrong parts, but they're the parts that I bought, because they were the right price, and we're gonna see how long we can beat on them for before they don't want to be beat on anymore. And before I go, because like I said, haven't videoed any of the work I've done, so this is more or less me just explaining what I've done and how I've gone about doing it. Figured I would at least show everybody what I'm talking about with the Warren upright, the old school winch. It covers up a lot of room, so that's why I ended up offsetting it to one side, so I can still get as much airflow as possible through here. And I haven't actually checked this yet, but you can see there is no room behind it to put this fan, so this fan is just going to be mounted right up in here, and I'll just have to figure out how I'm going to go about mounting it, but that's where it's going to end up. So that dictates where that goes, and I dictated that I'm putting that winch on there and did this bumper. So like I said, I think this thing is looking pretty snazzy. But that's all I'm going to be doing today. I'm not doing any more work, and I'm gonna do what I can to start videoing again of all the work I am doing, because I'm finally at a point where I can just start finalizing everything and not have to sit and think and not have much time to do it. So sorry about not showing you guys what I've been doing as I've been doing it, but this is the best I can do. And hopefully I get to see you guys out on the trail soon, because I'm itching to go out. So as always, hope you enjoyed the video and stay off-road.
Start it up.